Hello, hi everyone. Hi, this is Christine Crow here, and welcome to my channel. And I wanted to talk about what it's like as an older person that's moved abroad. You know, it's such a big decision, right? So I moved abroad to Cyprus, for example, and I want to tell you about things that people don't really talk about when you're an expat, for example. Now, bear in mind, I'll go through the story. I'm a woman in my 60s. I'll be 60 in a couple of months, and making a decision to move abroad 5 years ago, you know, when I was 55, is quite a big decision for anybody to make that decision to move anyway. Never mind when you're, getting older, to decide to leave the place where you was born, for example, and the place that you grew up, for example, is a big choice to make, as well as leaving some of your loved ones behind. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about why I moved to Cyprus and some of the things that people don't really talk about in Cyprus. And I hope that you're going to enjoy this, and I'd love for you to stay to the end because I want to share this with you, the reason why I'm in Cyprus with my family. And it is such an amazing journey, and I just want to share it with you. So I've got quite a lot to say, so I hope you'll be able to stay to the end. So moving abroad to Cyprus, it wasn't something that I just decided to do 5 years ago. It was something that was actually in the making for 15 years. I was always watching location, and thinking, wow, I'd love to move abroad. But at that time, I wasn't sure where I wanted to move abroad to. So me and my husband, we was watching location every week to try and give ourselves a good idea of where we wanted to move, so we wasn't far from the UK, for example. And this is something that really is a big decision when you decide to do this. So when you're going into moving abroad at 55, you're also thinking about retirement, semi-retirement. But when I was there, when I was moving to Cyprus at 55, I started my own business, for example, in Cyprus. I have a Cyprus company. So that led me to be able to move to Cyprus. And I've been doing this for 5 years, for example. In June, it will be 5 years. And it was a big decision. But at the time, there was COVID going on. There was a lot happening. For example, there was so much uncertainty. And I needed to choose a place that I felt was safe as well. So I looked in, I did research about where to move to, and Cyprus was and is, I believe it still is now, the safest place to move to. I think the crime rate was like something really small, like 5%. And it wasn't awful crime rates. It was, when I say crime rate, it depends what you see as an awful crime rate. So I shouldn't really just make it as if it was nothing, for example. But 5%, that's a very low crime rate, for example. So that really did allure me and my family to move there. But also another reason why I made that decision 5 years ago when the lockdown was happening in the UK, because we were living in the UK, there was a few factors that made that decision for us. And one of the factors is that England is getting expensive. Things were costing, expensive, living, that things were starting to go up, but also there was the uncertainty of what's happening with lockdown. And also my son, who was 14 at the time, for example, the school in the UK wasn't all that great to him. So I needed to make a decision because he was facing bullying, he was facing racism, should I say. But don't get me wrong, my son could stand his own ground and stick up for himself, but no child wants to be having to deal with that on a regular basis. It's not nice to have to deal with. So I made a decision. That was one of the reasons. The second reason is that the cost of living is so much cheaper here in Cyprus, for example. So that was my second reasoning. And the third reasoning is that the weather. Wow, the weather. Most of the year it is sunny, I would say, for about 10%. It's not 10%, 10 months out of the year, you're getting a lot of sunshine. The weather is nice, beautiful scenery, and also the people are so friendly. It's not just about, when you go on holiday and you experience that 2 week and it's like bliss, for example. Well, for me, and I can only speak for myself and my family of what we've experienced, for example, we have been welcomed. People have been very friendly. The neighbors have been very friendly, for example, and the locals are very, very friendly. They make you feel very welcome as well. So these are the things I wanted to talk about because I know there's a lot of unrest in US as well as the UK. So this is the reason why I'm talking to you as well, because there's so much advantage here in Cyprus. I mean, even the properties here are absolutely amazing. You get more for your money. You could purchase a property or even rent a property here, and it is a lot less than in the UK. So for example, if you was renting a flat, for example, a 1 bedroom flat in the UK, you'll be paying say 1,000 to 1,500 a month, for example. Whereas here, all depending on the location, then your price could be from 500 a month, for example, euros I'm talking about, to say 700 euros a month, for example. And you even get a communal pool, for example. In terms of rental properties, you can rent a 3-bed house, for example, even on a complex or not a complex, and the price could be about 1,000 euros, for example. It really depends on the location. Now, for me, like I said, these were the reasons why we decided to move to Cyprus and to set up the business as well. Now, my business is worldwide, so I'm able to live here in Cyprus and I do my meetings online here. Just like I'm speaking to you here online on YouTube, for example, I can also do the same with my clients as well. And I think that's something really important, is that there's so much to do here. And I wanted to talk about being an older person and living in Cyprus in a vibrant culture. It's just absolutely amazing. And the lifestyle here is just filled with adventures and relaxation. You can just go for beautiful walks along the seafront or beautiful walks up the mountains and things like that. So there's so many beautiful ruins that you could go and visit. There's a lot of history here, a lot to do, and things things are a lot cheaper here as well. Like if you go out for a meal, it's not expensive. Two people could eat for, 30 euros, for example. Could you get that in America? Could you get that in the UK, for example? And when I say you're eating something very healthy, a beautiful Mediterranean, you could order a tapas, a meze for two people, for example, and it could be, say, 10 to 15 euros per person, for example. So I'm just trying to give you a really good idea of why, living in Cyprus is a really good place to be, especially now with all that's going on abroad, for example, in America, in the UK, for example. Even if you just come out for a holiday, just to get away from all of this, things that's happening, for example. So you also, the perception here is that it is a perfect balance. You can work if you choose, or you can just be at leisure. It is entirely up to you. It's entirely up to you to explore this beautiful island. And I know that relocating is such a big vision. It really is. And it may seem like it's complicated and difficult to do, but there are organizations here that can help you with relocation. Even I can put you in touch with the right people to do with relocation, who I went through, that was very, very good, for example. And it may seem daunting, but it really wasn't. Once we'd, bought the tickets, we went and did the immigration, for example. My son had to take an exam at school. He goes to a British school, for example. And what's so wonderful here is that they can also teach you, your child, for example, the English curriculum as well, for example. And another thing that I want to talk about is that, don't see it as a challenge. If it's something that you want to do and that's in your heart, don't leave it for as long as what I did, for example. Come over and see for yourself, and then you'll get to see what it's like living here in Cyprus, even though you may be just coming over for a holiday, but you can get to go and visit and talk to people, the locals, and ask them what's it like living here. There's plenty of expats to talk to regarding that as well. I'm just going to drink my tea as I'm talking to you, as I always do. So just think about, I know it's a new country and maybe you haven't been to Cyprus, and that's the reason why I'm talking to you about Cyprus. And I'm going to talk to you about whether I had any challenges that I needed to overcome, for example. And to be honest with you, I haven't had any challenges that I needed to overcome. You can quite easily learn the language if you want to speak Greek, for example, or Cypriot, for example. There's just so many places here in Cyprus. So I'm in Paphos, for example, and there's a lot of expats here in Paphos as well. And it really is filled with so much that it's just a friendly place to be, for example. And I believe that the food is just so delicious. It's healthy. It's good for you. Yes, of course, they've got the McDonald's and there's the takeaways, which is worldwide, for example, but there's good home cooking that you get at the restaurants, the tavernas, for example. There's plenty of entertainment, there's singers, there's dancers, there's all kinds of things as well that you can get entertainment from as well. So I just wanted to be, upfront with you and just talk to you about the move for us moving to Cyprus, for example. And I want people to be empowered as individuals to make an informed decision or some direction to develop a strategy to look at how you can move over here to Cyprus, and to ultimately, the goal is for you to have a realistic understanding of what it's like to be an expat. So for me and my husband and my children, for example, that live here with us, for example, we're enjoying it. We're not experiencing anything negative, for example. So it's a perfect place for me for, i.e., for example, for retirement or semi-retirement. Now, I'll speak to you about the doctors here and the hospitals. For me, my experience, I have got a brilliant doctor here, and the whole medical center is absolutely amazing, and they treat you with the utmost respect. You get seen quickly. So if I make a call, for example, they could even see me the same day or the next day, for example. So when you need something done, they will act quickly. It's not like you've got to wait weeks, for example, or 6 months or something like that. You can get seen quickly, and that's another thing that I like here. Now, prescriptions, because when you get older, things are gonna happen and your body kind of breaks down a bit. So there's medication that you may need, for example. So I'll talk to you about that for those of you that are older, like myself, for example, or retired. Medication here, the prices are very good. For example, there's if you pay into, you've got insurance, social insurance, which they call Yetsi, for example, and the medication, it costs, anything from, say, €1 for a box of 30 tablets, depending on what type of medication that you're on, or it could be 160, €1.60, up to perhaps €3. It really depends, for example, but usually if it's cholesterol, which, usually when you get to a certain age, you do suffer, most people do suffer from cholesterol, for example. So for cholesterol tablets, it's €1.60, for example. So think about, the healthcare system here, to me, is very good. I've got no complaints regarding that whatsoever. I believe that they've looked after us very well, and they still continue to. Even with my sons, my husband, he has arthritis, all of these things, we're being well looked after. And if something does go wrong, then they do see you quickly. They will spot it as soon as you go to the doctors. They usually spot things quickly and they nip it in the bud, and before it becomes a problem, for example. So that's another thing that I like here about living here in Cyprus, because when you get older, things do go a bit wrong sometimes, so you have to act quickly, and they do act quickly. Another thing that I can think of is, like I said, the schools here, the British schools have been very good. For example, my son has got lots of friends and they're all polite. They really are. They come from all around the world, and they get on so well with each other, and they're so respectful. The children are so respectful as well. So that's another thing. What I love about here as well is that you've got like fruit that just fruit and vegetables that just grow everywhere. It's abundant, you know. It's just amazing. You know, there's oranges, there's lemon trees, there's pomelo trees, there's guava, there's avocado, there's walnuts, there's black olives, there's green olives, rosemary, basil, all the different herbs and spices, and it's just, and the fruit and the vegetables, and even the vegetables just taste so sweet and delicious. You know, you just, when you get a plate of the village salad, it's just beautiful. It's full of, you know, tomatoes, cucumbers, onion. You know, it looks like it's so simple, but it tastes so delicious as well, with the feta cheese, halloumi, for example, all the different dips. It's just a different way of living, and you know, you just go for lovely walks. I love to walk. I could walk for the whole day, for example, quite easily. Sometimes my husband has to sit and wait while I go for a walk, because I like to walk for an hour and a half, for example. But I could quite easily walk for 4 hours, quite easily, and I would, you know, I just love it because I love to do that. But I also like to read as well. I like to find out about the history of where I'm living, for example. There's just so much, and it's not, it's bright, you know, it's bright. It's not you know, you don't feel like you're oppressed or hemmed in, for example. You just feel that it's, everything is just open and everyone is friendly. You know, when you're walking, you say Yazaz or Calamera, you know, depending on what time of the day it is. You know, people are just friendly, you know, and I just wanted to really give that side for those of you that are thinking of moving from abroad. Maybe you're in the UK, maybe you're in the USA, for example, but you know, there's so much here. It is cheaper. It really is. And yes, things have gone up slightly. That's because of the inflation, for example, but not like how it is in the UK or the US, for example. Another thing that I wanted to mention is, like, there is a growing trend where people are leaving the UK to come to Cyprus, for example, you know, to retire, or maybe to do a business here, for example. But there's lots of different ways. There's people that want to retire that move here to Cyprus because it's warmer. You know, it's good for the joints and they feel more healthier. They've got better movement in their bodies, for example. Another thing that I would like to also mention, it is a popular destination as well. And if you want a warm climate, then this is the place to be. It's got stunning landscapes. There's, you know, Six Flag beaches everywhere. It's just everywhere, you know. And there's also a lot of social events as well. There's lots of activities that you can do. There's entertainments, and when you go to certain places, you get to meet people as well. So if you're single, then you get to meet people, so that you're not, you know, by yourself all the time. So you get to make friends. There's different clubs for ages, for example. There's activities, and they do encourage interaction as well. So how can I make this? I'm going to explain a few feelings that, you know, I first was experiencing when I moved over. Yes, of course, it's daunting. And yes, of course, I've got children in the UK still and grandchildren. So yes, that was a bit daunting for me, for example, and that's the reason why I didn't make that move 15 years ago, for example. But when COVID hit, that was the push for me to say, look, come on, you've wanted to do this 15 years. What are you waiting for? You can't go out, so you're locked in. But in Cyprus, people were still walking around. Obviously, they had masks and there was restrictions. There were times that you could go out during the day when it was locked down, for example. But it was really maintained. The rate of COVID was, really maintained really well because of the restrictions, for example. They didn't take it lightly. It was taken very serious, for example. So some of the things that I enjoy doing is walking, but maybe you enjoy cycling because they've got cycling. There's lots of different activities. Swimming, I love swimming as well. So there's lots of big swimming pools. Majority of people have got swimming pools either on a complex or on their property, for example, or even there's big outdoor swimming pools. There's the sea. People just go for swimming. They just swim in the sea. Whether it's winter or summer, the locals swim in the sea, and it's so good for you, isn't it? Because it's like cell renewal as well. So I wanted to explain that. And another thing that I wanted to also mention is that it is affordable and you can live a more fulfilling lifestyle because it's more affordable. Now, with regards to the opportunities for remote work, you can do that here. You can work remotely as long as you let your boss know if you've got a boss, or if it's your business, then you can work remotely from home, for example, or you can travel over, for example, every so often. The choice is yours. It's entirely up to you. I can't say that I've met many obstacles because I've always been able to overcome them, for example. And but I'm here to enrich my retirement. I'm here to have, when I'm prepared for retirement, that I want to be in a warm climate and I want to be able to enjoy my years whilst I'm able to be active and move around, for example. So, like I said, a lot of people are moving abroad, for example, and for me, it's given me so much more new experiences of food, opportunities, and it does seem like it's glamorous living in Cyprus, Mediterranean island. It's beautiful. Aphrodite, the Aphrodite, the Love Island. How can I say it? There's just so much to see, so much to see, and so much to enjoy. And I know would seem like a big decision that you're leaving your friends behind and your family, for example, but trust me, when you move over here, they come over all the time, all the time. You actually see them more than what you actually would have done in the UK because it's a warm climate. So they just jump on the plane, for example, and they're here. If you're in the UK, for 4 hours, for example. So I know that, you possibly would feel a bit of anxiety about that and sadness possibly, but they will come over and visit, or you can go over and visit as well when it suits you, for example. So I know that would be something that you'd be questioning. I've got to leave my grandkids or my kids. It's up to you. I can only give you my take on how it's been for me and other people that have been here for a long time. And I know it may seem like an emotional challenge that can be overwhelming, but it's important to look at this as part of the relocation process as well. Okay? So think about the when you move over here, there is a cultural adjustment, not big because there's lots of English, there's Americans here, people from all around the world, for example. And another thing that I will mention is that I see it as excitement, because I love to meet people from all around the world because I want to learn from everybody, not just from one culture, for example. And so looking at this is that you're learning a new language is really good. That's important for me, and I'm trying to learn the new language. Even though I've been here for 5 years, I only know a few words. I did start going to school to learn Greek, for example. I had to take a test in Greek when I was doing my employment agency, for example. That was all in Greek, and I had to take a Greek exam, for example. But I do need to learn Greek. I still haven't learnt it yet. So that's something I need to do for myself, and I'll probably do that once I become semi-retired, because then I will have that time to go into the college to learn Greek, for example. And usually they have different levels. For example, in the beginning level is like, if you go into college, that is, it costs about, it was about €10 couple of years ago, for example, so it may have changed, so don't quote me on that. And it was for about 3 months, and we'd have to go like twice a week, for example, and I think it was 2 hours each time, and then we would have to take a test. But I didn't get to finish that because I was so busy. I'd just done an exam in Greek for the employment agency, which is very similar to in the UK. It's like I won't say it's very similar. It's like when you're going through an inspection, like the Care Quality Commission, for example, in the UK, but this is to be an recruitment agency. You have to take an exam. You have to go to class for, I think it was about 3 months, for example, and then you have to take an exam, and then you have to be interviewed by the Department of Labor, for example, to see if you are fit for running an employment business, for example. And then you have to get, if you're from the UK, you've got to get your DBS, your police check done. You've also got to check that you haven't gone through any adversities, for example, and that has to come from the UK, for example, and then that has to be given to the Department of Labor, all part of your paperwork, your qualifications, your experience. What else was there? And then I had to go to college, for example. Like I said, I think that was once a week, for example. So there was a lot going on. So that's why I couldn't finish my Greek lessons, because I had a lot going on with registering the company for the employment agency, for example. So that was my experience. So depending on what type of business that you're wanting to do in Cyprus, at the time, I went through the employment agency route because I wanted to see what it was like to do that, as well as I wanted to do it as well, for example. But I think the coaching business ended up taking over that part of the business, for example, more than the employment agency, for example. And you have to be licensed over here to do an employment agency. So they're very strict, for example. And they then inspect you once a year. Once you've gone through your registration, I think that's a very good thing that they do that. They make you go to, I had to go to management school, a business management school, to get my training. But like I said, it was all in Greek. So the presentations, I got a copy of the presentation, sent it to my email. So then I then was able to get it translated by a translator, for example, into English so that I could read through it. Even though I did manage to pick up some of the language, for example, and I was then able to learn. I was learning Greek as I was listening to the Greek lecturers talking about employment law, etc., and running an employment agency, for example. But I was learning as I was listening, for example, and I was picking up on some things as well. So that for me it was important that I did that for my business as an add-on to my business that I had. But obviously, if you're coming here to retire, then that's great. That's wonderful. That you will love it. It really is amazing. There's so much to do here as well. It's not like it's not a sleepy town. If you want a sleepy town, there are parts of Cyprus that you can go to, that if you just want to chill at home all day kind of thing. But it's nice to get out and to see the world of this beautiful island that we live on, for example. So for me, it was essential that I moved to here for Cyprus, because I felt that, and I'm sure everybody felt this anyway, during the lockdown, you just didn't know what was happening and where this was leading to. So it just seemed for me like the only logical choice was to, look, let's move to Cyprus. We're on lockdown, so let's move to Cyprus. Let's get this ball rolling. So I used that time during lockdown to get my business registered in 2019, for example, and moved to Cyprus, and that's what happened. And from there, I haven't looked back. My children come to visit on a regular basis, for example. And, I just want to give you a bit of an idea of what it's like living here in Cyprus. And I'm going to start talking more about it, as well as the properties that are here in Cyprus as well. Because moving abroad is such an adventure. I feel like when I moved here, I felt like I got a new lease of life again. I didn't feel so bogged down, rushed. I think what COVID has done for me is realize that, hey, I can work from home. I don't have to go into an office and drive to work for 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes when I'd get on the train going to London, it would take me 3-4 hours. And then again, going back home, and then I wouldn't get home till late at night. And this has given me a new lease of life. So if I need to go out just for an hour, for example, then I go for a walk, for example, and I'm right by the sea, which is so beautiful. But my morning routine is I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I pray, I meditate, I read, I exercise. I do intensity exercise for 20 minutes, and then I go for a walk for an hour and a half, come back, and then I I'm ready to start my day. I block off 90 minutes at a time, and I follow the method, the 5 a.m. method by Robin Sharma. You know, it's an amazing book. It's called The 5 a.m. Club, Robin Sharma. And that's where I learnt quite a lot of this mind motivation as well. Because when you're running a business, you've got to be on top form, you know, and be the best that you can be, for example. But for me, like if I want to just go for a walk for 10 minutes, I just walk for 10 minutes. You know, just see the sun, or just go and smell the fresh air and the sea and just look at that. It's just amazing. So I wanted to just go through some of what it's like for me living in Cyprus here. And my husband enjoys it as well. You know, we've got so much freedom. He's got arthritis and diabetes, and he can walk for long periods of time, and it helps his arthritis in his knees, for example. And for me, keep moving, there's no other option, and Cyprus does that for me. And that's why I've always been an active person anyway, but I like to go for walks for an hour and a half in the morning before I start work. How many people can do that? How many people can say that that's what they do? And like I say, I'm not seeing any crimes here. Yes, of course there are crimes, but it's not like in the UK or in the US, for example. It is, even though where I was living before in the UK, I didn't see it as much as what it was in the papers, for example, but I knew it was happening, but that's because I was working all the time. But you know, your property is at risk, for example, of being robbed and things like that in the UK, as well as when I was in the States as well. But I just wanted to share with you about what it's like as an older person. And for me, I think it's taken off 10 years. I believe it's taken 10 years off of my life. So even though I'm nearly 60 in a couple of months, I really feel like a 40-year-old. I've still got energy. And I don't know whether that's because I live here and the food that I'm eating, the Mediterranean food, the diet. My husband's a pescatarian. He doesn't eat meat. I am really strong on the pescatarian, but I really want to be even stronger on the vegan and the plant-based food, because I believe that's going to also possibly give us more cellular health, for example. So that's why I'm trying these new different types of meals. And I do my cooking, and I'm going to get on and start doing my cooking shows while I'm talking to you about business or about different subjects, for example, because at the end of the day, I believe that it's okay to do that. But I wanted to share with you about, if you are thinking of where to move to, why not look at moving to Cyprus? I'm going to be doing some videos here as well about some of the properties here in Cyprus, for example, whether it's rental or whether it is to buy a property in Cyprus, because when you buy a property in Cyprus, you can get residency. For example, if it's 300,000, don't quote me on that, but I'm just saying 300,000. I'm not an estate agent, but I'm just going from my own personal experience, for example. So when I say 300,000, I mean euros, not dollars, but euros, not pounds, I mean euros. So you can see that there's a big difference in prices. And when you purchase a property for 300,000 euros, for example, it will be a decent sized property. You know, you're looking at something that's probably 3-4 bedrooms, for example, depending on where the location is. You could even, you know, have a 4 or 5 bed. It depends whereabouts you live in Cyprus, for example. But here where I am, for example, you can get a decent property for 300,000 euros, for example. And what I would suggest is that if you are going to do that, then obviously there's law firms here that will help you with transitioning. There's companies that can help you to move and relocate to Cyprus. But I also can help with relocation coaching, for example, because I have some clients that are interested in that. But I wanted to share with you about what it is like living here in Cyprus. And I'm sorry I'm not outside showing you that. I'm in my office, for example, and it's not a small office, it's quite a big size, because this side is where my green screen is. So when I'm doing a video and I do a green screen, and there's my desk here where I am, and there's this desk here, which is normally where my husband sits when he's helping me out in the business, for example. Then I have my other son in another office, for example. He helps me out as well. And I also have my youngest son. He helps me with my thumbnails, and he's also starting to help me with editing some videos, but he's going through some exams at the moment, so I'm not, you know, putting any pressure on him. When he's finished his exams, then he'll be able to help me out a bit more, because I think it's important for children to learn how your business is, how it runs, for example. And all of my children have worked in my businesses, for example, so they understand about what I do, and there's different parts about what I do as well. But, you know, I just want to say, if you're looking at getting a business here, do it. If you're looking at semi-retirement here, do it. You know, whether you're spending 6 months of the year where you are and then 6 months over here, for example, do it. Whether you're thinking of retiring here, do it. I highly recommend it. It is such a nice place to live. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And no matter what your religion is, for example, you will always be welcome as well. And what I like here is, for me, I'm a Christian, so they've got like chapels. There's even chapels outside where you can light a candle, and I love to do that. I love it. And that's my choice. So in the morning while I'm walking, I will light a candle and I will say a prayer. It's just beautiful that I can do that. So I just wanted to share that with you, and let me know if any of you are thinking of moving abroad. You know, because I'm hearing that people are thinking of moving abroad from the UK, as well as those that are in the US, for example, are thinking of moving abroad. So let me know if you're thinking of moving abroad, and if you haven't liked or subscribed to the channel, please do so, because I am going to be doing some videos on Cyprus and what it's like, for example. You can see I've got a playlist here which is moving abroad. Check that out. Check out my playlist, Day in the Life of a CEO. That also mentions about Cyprus when you from a business person's point of view. And then there's also the real estate, for example. I'll be showing you some of the properties so that you can get to see what they're like, for example, so that you know that it's not just about what I've said, that you're actually seeing it for yourself online. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you're having a wonderful Saturday, and I hope that you've enjoyed what I've talked about today, because sometimes when we get to a certain part in our life, when we've always thought, oh, I would love to move abroad, then maybe this is your time. Maybe this is the time to do it, because Cyprus will welcome you. They will welcome you. So if you've got any questions about Cyprus, then you can always put something in the chat, and I will look at answering those questions as well. But I would highly recommend moving to Cyprus. If you're thinking of moving, then move to Cyprus, because it is a beautiful island. All right, so take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and I will speak to you all soon. Stay tuned for the next upload as well. Like I said, if you haven't liked and subscribed, do so, and you'll get further updates as well. Check out my playlist. I've got plenty of videos here as well. So have a wonderful evening, everyone, and I will speak with you all soon. Thank you. Goodbye.